When did you kind of wake up to the fact that the world had changed?
And the kids left.
I think in the 70s, you know, with the women's revolution.
I had a store that sold birds and bird supplies, and I felt that I needed to know accounting for my store. So I got an MBA. Hated business, so I got a Doctor of Education.
Oh, so you really went back.
Yes.
And then what did you do with your Doctorate of Education?
I taught at Temple for quite a while, and I also taught at LaSalle. Mostly I taught teachers how to use computers.
Great, hey, that's
good.
I was a housewife, a mother. I loved history, but I had no thoughts about going back to school until I was talking to a young caddy. And I said, oh, I love history. And he said, oh, I am a graduate student at Rutgers. And the next thing I knew, several days later, I got a package. And this young man had found my name, had sent me all the information, paid $1.85. And I said, you know, I can't toss this away. So I drove to Rutgers, and there was a very embracing professor who encouraged me to come, and that's how I started. This was 1983. And I finished, it took me 10 years, well it was actually 1994 when I finally got my PhD. And I, of course, didn't have a subject. My advisor, who's a very fast track and wonderful, he's called a cultural historian named Jackson Lears, he said, oh, somebody should do Oscar Wilde. So that's how I got to be involved in Oscar Wilde's influence on America, which turned out to be very special.
I got my PhD in English literature from Columbia.
It was difficult to work full-time and to work on my thesis.
Going to graduate school with 3 young children. It was a struggle.
I went to Pace. I figured that was the only school I could go to at night because I was working. There were 3 of us in college. Let me tell you, even in those days, that was a drain.
And you were working too?
Oh, I was working as assistant superintendent of schools.
Oh.
So I went at night.
1970, my husband died very suddenly, and I had the 4 kids there. At the end of 1971, we came back to the United States, to Syracuse, and I then applied to law school. But I had to take the LSATs, and I didn't start until September of 72. And when I started, they told me they didn't really want me in this class. They said I only had a 3.5 or something like that from Vassar, and they were getting people who had 4.0s. And of course, I told them that in 1956, I don't think I knew anybody that ever had a 4.0, but grade inflation, you know, through the years when I was not in college, had really changed the application process. So I did finish in the regular 3 years, and then I had to take the New York State Bar, and I had a classmate, a woman whose name is Linda Gibbs. She's now a judge in New York. And she said, well, Carole, you can't go home to your kids every day like you've been doing in law school, because you'll never pass the bar, which was true. So she said, you're going to come and live with me in my apartment, and you can go visit your kids at dinner every night. And so I had to hire somebody. So I hired a babysitter, whom all of my kids hated. That was terrible. They really did not like her. And I spent 6 weeks with Linda. She was a very tough taskmaster. And I would go visit the kids. So at the end, we had to go to Buffalo. You take the bar examination in the state of New York in different departments. So I was in the 2nd department, went to Buffalo, took the exam.
I decided to go back to college and get a degree in art. And so my son Guillaume accompanied me at the university, and they asked me at the university, are you coming to register your son? I said, no, it's the other way around.
And I had 3 kids. I mean, I was doing this, I was single, and at that point, I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning to do my homework or whatever. It was worth it. I just loved it.
How old were your kids when you did this?
The oldest was 12 and Dee Dee was 3. And so it was good. We used to put our papers on the refrigerator. And, well, what did you get?
Right. And you were the one with the A's, right?
You better believe it.
I was very, very bashful about going back to school because my husband was saying there's an age for everything and you're too old. And those were the best years of my life because it was wonderful to be with youngsters, the age of my own children.
Yes.
I had the pride of getting good results and I was catching up on something I had missed.
Even when I went back to school for a degree, it had to be at night.
When you switched from the psychology into Bloomingdale's, what prompted you to switch?
I'd always wanted to be in personnel, so I took some graduate courses while I was working at the Psych Corps.